I'm not reluctant to suggest that Kreuger could be the next Nathan Murphy, but a little bit taller and a little bit bigger. I don't mind that comparison. I love that.
What do you respect SP10? Do you respect Pendles?
Do you have a metaphor? The Carlton and Collingwood game in round 22, 2022. Do you have a metaphor for it?
It's probably like sliding into Taylor Swift's DMs, isn't it, really?
Champs, we're entering some precarious territory, inviting an arch rival, none worse than, I guess, the navy blue, the blue baggers, hopeful to be the blue flaggers this year. This guy probably doesn't need an introduction. There's a lot of viewers of the Pies Footy YouTube channel. The Laughing Magpie comes to mind that are well aware of what Pommy's about and love him for the man he is, besides the fact that he is a Blues diehard and a real footy intellect. PommyInOZ, how are we, mate?
Hey, tell you what, a Pom in Australia on a Magpies show as a Carlton fan is a bit like a red ant going into a black ant's nest, isn't it?
That's crazy. Welcome, mate. It's. I've been looking forward to this one. Champs, we've had some nerve-wracking or at least I've felt a little bit nervous having some guests on in the past. Your Ben Reeds, your Dylan Alexanders, but this one I'm a little bit at ease. I think Pommy he softened me up a bit over a phone call the other day. So now I'm actually looking forward to this with not much angst attached to it.
Yeah, exactly. I reckon it will just roll off the tongue. The only bad thing, champ, is he's a Carlton supporter, but I reckon there's worse Carlton supporters to have a conversation with than this quick-witted Pom.
Hey, mate, and you're wearing a Pom shirt as well. Do you know what I mean? You've totally deflected my aggression here. I love
like it. I said, I had to break it in. I said pre-show, got to get on your good side a little bit. First time I'm meeting you, but next time, I don't know, maybe I'll come out in a Wales or Irish kit for you.
That'll be good fun. That'll be good value. No, I'm looking forward to it. I'm a big fan of you guys, to be fair. I've got to say, you bust out some good content, and I'm an admirer of content, so I'm looking forward to this. It'll be a good chat.
Appreciate it, brother. Pommy, we'll get into the first topic because we want to create a bit of a background and get some context about the man. Pommy by ethnicity, but Pommy by nature as well. With that the tongue that Caleb mentioned, he's got great banter. But finding yourself in Australia, coming from England, tell us a bit about that, and then how you came across AFL, and furthermore, why you decided to don the navy blue and not the black and white.
Dear. Well, I mean, it was a drunken bet while I'm here. It's a quality backstory. Me and my best mate were about 12 pints deep and 8 sambucas into a night out, just a standard Thursday afternoon. And my contract had run out in the UK, and I was like, look, I want to go travelling and stuff, go somewhere else. And he was like, I'll buy you a pint if you book a flight on the next song. And it happened to be Manic Street Preachers Australia, just totally randomly. And by that night, I booked to come to Melbourne without a job. And in that month, I got a job, came over here to coach golf, and met my beautiful wife while I was there. He was an Australian. I never went back. I was only meant to be here a year. And her father got me into football. I was a Geelong fan for about 6 months because my boss was a huge cat man. I hated football, though. It was just basically egg chasing in pajamas. It looked bizarre to me. And he taught me everything he knew. I fell in love with Carlton, and the rest is history. Blue bagger for life now.
Unbelievable. I want to just quickly come back a couple moments. You mentioned golf. And there's a bit of a story there, and I want to, I guess, invite people to know a little bit more about that, because that's a bit of a story within itself about you.
Yeah, so when I was a little boy, obviously the dream in the north of England is to play football or soccer, as you guys would call it. So that never really took off. Massive cricketer and part-time golfer as a kid, and I was quite good at it. So went through county level and things like that. Eventually did my university degree and became a golf pro, and luckily had a lot of mates through the setup that were on tour, coached them, and built a successful coaching little foundation. And that's where my passion from stats and improvement comes from. I was a very analytical coach and still coach to this day as well. So it's like now my part-time gig. And I'm very fortunate to be in the position that I am, that I get to chat rubbish on YouTube and do something I love every day. Then you don't really have to work. So I haven't really worked full-time since I was about 16, apart from that 6-month foray at McDonald's when my pop told me to get a real job. I haven't really put in any day graft in my life. I don't know what it looks like.
So, Pommy, you're telling me the viewers can go out there and get coached by the one and only Pommy in the lovely game.
Yeah, they can.
Is that what you're saying?
That's what they can. Yeah, I mean, you're just a phone call away from 30 minutes with me.
Unreal.
Jesus.
Which I mean, a good 30 minutes with me. I mean, that's probably about 5 years of our 10-year relationship of what my wife's had. So, pretty good deal.
I was going to say you're promising 30 minutes, but I reckon we probably last 5. But we'll move on from that. that didn't come out. Moving on. Pommy, so Carlton fan, pro golfer, loves the analytics. Caleb is a coach himself and has that desire and passion, and also loves his analytics by way of his day job. I suppose, when did you was that a natural inclination when you got further involved within the sport of AFL? Like, where did you find the analytics? Because it can be hard to come across. And where did you say, like, did you ask yourself, how can I paint a clearer picture to me by way of stats? Like, how did that come about?
Yeah, so like from my coaching background, I noticed that there was this common theme, right? And I call it deception of results. But if you ever get anyone for golf, we'll use that as an example, and they're playing badly, if you actually ask them what went wrong, they'll say something really, really rudimentary. So it could be my putting was rubbish. But when you actually break down their data, it could be even more complex than that. It could be that they felt like they putted badly, but their average shot was 11 meters away from the hole on their approach, and that needs to be shorter. So when you actually look at raw data, just because you've recognized something, it could be something 8 minutes before you did that. So I've always had a good understanding by trying to read process. I think process outweighs results. And with football, when I first came over here, there was so much going on that I had no idea what was going on. And then when you ask people, you actually realise that no one has a clue what they're on about in football as well. You've only got to go on social media. It's Banterville, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? Like, oh, Carlton lost this weekend. Oh, it's because they're not tough. And you're like, what the hell does that mean? Like, do you know what I mean? Oh, they're not classy enough. You're like, can you define class? I can't. So numbers came into my life and I started to see patterns, and I always relate things back to what I understand. So that's football in my country, and you can start to see similarities in that process. So yeah, numbers were a big thing. And then I found out that there was no numbers in AFL. It was like, that was even more balmy to me. I was like, soccer, I can find out how many times Cristiano Ronaldo does a Rabana and then goes for a wee after. In AFL, I'm lucky to find out how many tackles you have and things like that. So it became a real passion. It helps me understand it. And I think I was like one of the first YouTubers to use numbers, and now everyone uses numbers. It's balmy to me, and I love it. It's good because I think for me, you've got to understand what's going on and the why.
Yeah, I think it's a big thing where you can speak anecdotally about what you're seeing out there, but then if you back that up as well with statistics there, I think it just helps build a good case on the basis of you're just not talking rubbish and you're just talking out of your ass. And if you can provide statistics on why this is a likely outcome of X happening, it just makes it easier for the understanders. And if you can explain to someone, then hopefully they can pick it up. And then, the whole game of AFL, eventually people will just start picking up on trends and everyone learns, and you get better footy players at the end of the day, better viewers, and you won't get as many nuffies.
100%. I mean, I'm 38, 39 this year, and when I first started in golf, I've got a few good mates who are working in the EPL now as well, the Premier League, and we chat rubbish all the time. But like in our era, so 40 years, I remember learning to play golf at 13, 14, and if I want to hit the ball further, coaches would just tell me to be more masculine. Do you know what I mean? Just hit the ball harder, be stronger, be tougher. And it was real simplistic coaching. And then 10 years after that, we're talking about, compression, how much swing speed you can build from the top of your swing, hip turns, you're talking like 2-3% at the top of your swing. And suddenly the data available was insane, from being told, just pretend it's your dad not letting you stay out late and hit the ball a little bit harder, to suddenly there was actual raw metrics you could judge. And speaking to my mates in the EPL, like it's massive, the data game, like it's such a big investment. So it really does tell the story. So there's still the old school coaching, but the data really does present a lot of glaring weaknesses that the eye doesn't tell you.
Champs, could you add on to that being a Melbourne City keeper?
Yeah,
was there a lot of analytical side of it in when you were playing, Champs, or not as much to the level of the EPL? Obviously, there's not going to be as much data available and resource, but like, did you get a slice of that?
Yeah, I guess a big part of it is video analysis. A lot of coaching cues for technical breakdowns is massive in the game of soccer, whereas footy, it's quite clear in footy from a grassroots level. You're not even taught how to kick a football properly. Like you even look at AFL players these days. There's players with some seriously suspect kicking actions, but that's just been ingrained within their game style from a very young age. Whereas when you play soccer, you're taught the foundations of the game from the get-go. And you look at players like Mason Cox, who comes over with literally no AFL background and is basically a better set shot than maybe 90% of the rest of the league. So that's a big emphasis when it comes to the world of soccer, along with the video analysis. And then to Pommy's point, like you look at Aussie rules to the lay person who has never seen a game of AFL footy, it's fucking chaos. It's chaos. There's a lot happening. And if soccer is a technical sport and it's chess and it's strategy, then what's footy? Because that is just a combustion of fuckery. It's crazy what you look when you're looking out there. What's going on?
That should be the dictionary definition of Australian rules football. That's the best description I've ever heard of our great game.
Combustion of fuckery.
I write that down. We'll get a T-shirt, maybe a hat. Maybe we'll get it on a hat.
Launch the merch store. That's the launch.
I'm stealing that. When anyone asks what's going on, I'm just going to be like, it's a combustion of fuckery.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. And speaking of combustion of fuckery, Pommy. So, for some reason, you did explain why you're a Carlton fan and whatnot. But was there an early memory that you hold dear to you that sort of, I guess, symbolizes why you're a Carlton fan? Was there a moment? Did something happen that you saw that you go, yeah, I want to, like, obviously you had
something that like cemented you being a Carlton supporter?
Yeah.
2013, Chris Judd. I think that was the first time that I ever looked at someone and was like, okay, I get it. And I think you talked about it, the combustion of fuckery. The first 2 years of being here, it was just literally blokes in vests trying to catch a yellow ball that was egg-shaped. And maybe being simplistic, being a pom, I was just like, can't be that hard. You know what I mean? Like, we catch the ball from 3 in the UK. Any idiot could do that. God, these guys are Mickey Mouse. But there was one thing that stood out when you watch your Gary Ablett Juniors, when you watch your Chris Judds. It was probably like an Australian seeing Ronaldo or Messi. You can tell, even though you might not know what's going on, they're pretty good. And the Olympics is on at the moment. I always think that's a good metric for a foreigner to AFL, that when you watch the Olympics, like there's some spots there that no one's got a Scooby-Doo what's going on. Let's be honest. Like you watch Greco wrestling, God knows what's going on there, because that looks like foreplay in the north of England to me. but you can tell who he's good. You can tell, like, you have no idea of the rules, but suddenly the world number one Greco wrestler comes on, and you're like, Jesus, they're pretty good, aren't they? Like, and that was what happened with me with Judd.
So good Greco wrestler equals good four-player. That's what I'm getting.
Because they take a bit of time, don't they? They're on the hands and knees for a while, and they take a bit of time before they end up on the back.
I love that. That's fucking gold. That's why you're here, Pommy. That's why we love you, mate. The analogies, the metaphors. I tell Caleb, mate, we've got to lift our game when it comes to his analogy and metaphors. We fucking shit the bed when we're live and we're trying to recall some decent ones. But where does this natural aptitude come from when it comes to these metaphors, analogy? You pull them out of your ass, or is it just an English thing? Like, where?
I don't know. I mean, probably my granddad who raised me, like, he was just batshit crazy. So, like, I spent 18 years of my life getting these analogies every day of my life and going, just shut up, old man. And then something happened when I was about 19 and it became part of my life as well. So it's probably that. I do think when you come from, like, an industry of coaching, something quite complex, which, like, without boring anyone about golf, you break golf down. It was invented by peasants who were Scottish. So these guys were lucky to undo their fly to go for a wee intelligence-wise. But 300 years later, we're talking about swing planes and moments of inertia and things. And I used to read at university and going, Jesus, it can't be this complicated. And I found when you actually started coaching real people, talking about swing planes, that means nothing. Talking about being perpendicular to your shoulders, that means nothing. The quickest way to teach someone something, like, the best golf lesson I can give you is your stance. Men naturally know how to stand perfectly to a golf ball if you tell them to treat the golf ball as a urinal. It's crazy. Honestly, it's one of the weirdest things that's ever happened to me. Is one old guy, I was trying to get his legs the shoulder width apart, and honestly, it was like I was trying to teach him algebra. But instead of teaching him it in English, I was using an old ancient Sanskrit language. He couldn't understand it. And then he just goes, oh, it's like I'm pissing on the golf ball, lad. Why didn't you just say that? And I was there like, I've spent 12 minutes. Why don't you... What? So I sometimes find the most complex things can be related to in stupid things. And you remember it, don't you? When I say stupid things, it lodges in your head. I don't know why.
Pommy, do you have a metaphor for the Carlton and Collingwood game in round 22, 2022? Do you have a metaphor for it?
It's probably like sliding into Taylor Swift's DMs, isn't it, really? Like, you've got everything to gain, but you're probably going to look like a dickhead at the end of it.
Tell us a little bit more, because obviously, we can talk about some good Carlton moments, but as I said to you on the phone, I did my due diligence, or call this stalker traits. I scoured through the Blue Broad archives to re-watch the last 5 minutes of PommyInOZ doing his watch-along for that game to see what type of man you are against the faces of adversity. I was very surprised at how you handled the loss. But I guess, maybe if you want to... I hate to bring it back to a game that maybe you don't, I guess, recall too fondly of, or want to recall too fondly of it. What does it feel like as a Carlton fan being on that side of that game?
Shit, to be honest. It's not great. It always dawns on my mind because one of your colleagues, Mr. Swoop Luke, spent 3 weeks texting me every fucking week about the fourth quarter when Carlton were 12 points ahead, going, well done, bro, you're in finals. You fucking deserve it, mate, right? And every time he sent that text, Carlton imploded, right? And I don't think he meant to do it. I don't think he meant to kibosh it, but it felt like we were so close every week. And the Collingwood game, like, is there anything more poignant as a Carlton fan than seeing Jamie Elliott? Like, that guy turns into bloody dead-eyed dick when he plays us. But it hurt. But I'm a firm believer that the best life lesson I can tell you as an old man is when you're going through part of the process, the things that make the reward so much better is the ultimate pain you feel. And I'm a firm believer that how you act in adversity is a precursor to how you deserve success. So even though I was upset, even though I just wanted to kick as many cats as I could find, you've got to present yourself strong, because you know what? The sun comes up tomorrow, and it did hurt, man. Like, I'm not telling you, like, I think when I came off the camera, I did shed a little bit of a tear. It was tough. It was exhausting, but you've got a job to do. You've got a job to do at the end. And I do feel I've got a bit of a position of responsibility as one of the many the wonderful voices of my community. I could sit there and piss and moan and cry about it and say, woe is me, but I expect the boys to get back on that track Monday morning and bust arse and bring me a flag. So I've got to do the same as well. I've got to make sure that, okay, fair play, Collingwood won. Whoop-de-doo, it hurts. Let that hurt drive you. And it's funny, innit? I always said on that fan cam, I said, one day we'll have our chance to destroy their season and kickstart ours. Let's make sure we're ready for it. And ironically, 4 days from now, potentially we've got that opportunity.
Champ?
He's not wrong, champs. He's not wrong, huh? There you go, champ.
I was just going to quickly say before Champs goes on, but I was going to say it's scary how eerily similar this matchup in the next coming days is to that fixture. Like, sure, Carlton were in the 8 in that time. Collingwood are not in the 8 right now, but you can basically essentially eliminate us and end our season and simultaneously further lock up your spot in the top 4. So it's quite scary how similar it is.
Happens a lot.
Add on to that, though, it's like, I feel like Carlton, they probably should have played finals that year. Whereas, like, this year, I don't know if I'm being a little bit pessimistic, but I feel like if we just sneak in this year, it's a good result for us. I'm looking at it through that lens where, like, hey, man, if we win this weekend, it's like climbing Mount Everest for us, I reckon. It's going to set us nicely. But then it's not really, because then we've got Sydney the following week, champs, isn't it? It wasn't a nail in the coffin, like we hit them with a nail in the coffin, right? It's like Pommy, I don't know, champ. It's almost like the nail in the coffin, but it isn't at the same time.
It'll be interesting.
Well, I mean, you're only 4 out of there, aren't you? I mean, the way the season's gone, I mean, I think people write Collingwood off at their peril, to be honest, because I think it's why when we beat Geelong, I went on the Geelong fan channel because they're good friends of mine, the Hoops crew. And honestly, that was a smorgasbord of fuckery. Like we were like, sack Scott, start again, rebuild, our lives are over. And I'm like, hang about, you guys have been in the 8 for like 50 years. Like, you've had 1 loss. And like I said to them, you'll come back and you'll destroy Essendon and you'll probably be fighting for top 4 at the end of the year, because when you've been there and done it, you've got nothing to prove. So I think Collingwood have got 2 things going for them. One, they've won the flag. So mentally, there's no demons. There's no demons whatsoever, because they've already achieved. So even if they never win another flag in their career as players, they're already better than 99.9% of the people who have played AFL ever. So psychologically, there's no question mark. So they're playing for nothing to lose and everything to gain. But 2, I think one thing I've always tried to be nice about Collingwood as a Carlton fan is you've got to respect the heritage. And I mean this with all sincerity to the 16 other clubs. The AFL doesn't exist without Carlton and Collingwood. No one cares. Like, if you remove Carlton and Collingwood out of this, Essendon maybe, Richmond if you're having a laugh, but genuinely 14 clubs need Carlton and Collingwood, because everyone watches that game. Everyone, like, Australia, Friday night, there's 2 games simultaneously. No one gives a shit about the other game. You might as well have a home and away rerun at that time. It's going to get the same views. Like, it's the history, it's the passion, it's the fire. Every time we've played each other, when we're high up, you're low, you're high up, we're low, something always magical happens. So this game means more than 4 points. This is bragging rights, and no doubt you guys want to continue Carlton slide. And no doubt the big motivation for the boys at Prince's Park is there's a certain Scott Pendlebury who's had 400 games, which is one of less than 10 players to do it. There's no way Carlton want to let you guys leave that ground carrying him over on a win.
You hit the nail on the head. It's the bragging rights. One of our closest mates goes for Carlton. Would not want to hear from him. He talks so much shit. I would not want to hear from him if you guys win on Saturday, ending the season, Pendle's 400. We're talking about rivalries. If you want to go back to your time in the UK, I'm wearing the lovely O2 sponsor. How does the Collingwood-Carlton rivalry compare to some of those EPL ones in terms of your Spurs, Arsenals, your United, Cities, your Liverpool, Evertons? How do you reckon that compares?
I think as a rivalry in like passion levels, it's very similar. I think how passion is personified in Australia versus England are totally different things. Like totally different things. And what I mean by that is I find the best way I describe it is the hatred is on par with a Manchester United, Liverpool, things like that. It's very on par. I think the way it's processed is kind of like the hatred I had going to Scarborough College and over the road was St Augustine's. It's like a high school rivalry where there might be a few little skirmishes at the bus stop maximum, but really it's just name calling and little bits of backyard banter. So it's fierce. I think you go back 30, 40 years ago, you probably have a bit more animosity. I feel like the rivalry between the teams has probably been watered down with society, hasn't it? You're not going to go out there now and see a 12-man melee, fisticuffs and people being knocked out and jaws being rattled. But there definitely is that 100+ years of pride in both sides, and you can't water that down. So I think, for me, it's the fiercest rivalry in football. I don't think... I know we play Essendon, but let's be honest, we all hate Essendon. They're knobheads, aren't they, really? Do you know what I mean? Like, they're your cousin with a big head that your mum makes you be nice to at Christmas time and stuff like that. But, do you know what I mean? But you don't want your mates to know that he's your cousin. So, like, he's kind of just there. But, like, Collingwood County just means something, doesn't it? I think it's because of the flags, the history. Do you know what I mean? We're all on 16. It means so much, doesn't it? And I think we forget Essendon are also up there. But there's just something in there, the black and white. It stirs me as well. Like, I hate Collingwood, but I respect them so much, which I think you've got to do as a fan. Like, I know there's this fake rivalry you see on Twitter and stuff, but I think we've got to respect each other but hate each other at the same time, because what both clubs have achieved in their history is just phenomenal. It's legacy stuff. It's something that all the other clubs will never, ever match. Just us.
And respecting each other, you know, at a team point of view, we talked about the man who's going to play 400 games this weekend. As a Blues supporter, a supporter that's meant to absolutely hate Collingwood, you know, much like Juddy to you, even though I see Juddy as more like a West Coast player than a Blues player. But what do you respect SP10? Do you respect Pendles?
I'm probably the worst Carlton fan in the world, because I think for about a year in his draft, I had an erection for Nick Dacos. So, and it's still
working,
well.
Pommy? I'm just curious.
Still
Still working?
Mate, the way he plays football is a little bit like Viagra, isn't it? To be honest, I don't think any blue-blooded male doesn't get a bit excited about Nick Dacos. But Scott Pendlebury, I mean, I think there's only two players I can think of in my time here that have his uncanny ability to be surrounded by players and find space. I think him and Sam Mitchell are in a league of their own. Like, Scott Pendlebury is so freakish, even though he's as old as time. He still seems to have more time than anyone else. And I've got to say, as when we're not playing each other, Scott Pendlebury is a player that I turn the TV on to watch. He finds space where there isn't space. Everything he does is gracious and grateful. And I think he is not many players like him. He's one of them players that you just love to hate. He's like Steven Gerrard. As a Man United fan, I hated Steven Gerrard when he was playing, but like I talk about Steven Gerrard with so much respect because he's one of the best to ever do it. Like, it was a joy to watch Stevie Gerrard smash one top bins 40 yards out. And it's the same with Scott Pendlebury. It is a privilege to watch someone play at that level week in, week out. And he's a true professional. Like, rivalry aside, you'd kill your nan to have a player like Scott Pendlebury come through the draft and sign for your club. And you're a liar if you're not. Like, if you could clone Scott Pendlebury and there was an option to draft him at Carlton, you're saying yes every day.
Poor Nan.
There's really, poor Nan. But if she's on her way out, may as well fucking kick her out the door.
I was going to say, mine's been dead.
You got a almost 20-year career out of Pendles. Nan's what, 80, 85? Galanita there.
So you can buy biscuits as well, so it's not like you need her.
Yeah. Just on the topic of Pendles, right? So I remember you came into one of the streams, or I forget which one it was. We're talking about Pendles in the future because obviously there's not much left of that, to be transparent, right? You're a bit of an advocate for potentially seeing Pendles move to the halfback flank. That's something that you would entertain to extend Pendles' career if, say, his run outside of the midfield contest is becoming too great of a liability.
Well, I mean, I think there's got to be an interim period, hasn't there? And we've seen it with West Coast. They seem to cling on to their old dad's army midfield for like a year too long. Like, it felt like they just kept injecting players like Dom, players like Andrew Gaff and Dom Shuey, Luke Shuey, and players like that, just with like whatever they were injecting him to keep another year. And you were kind of thinking they're slowing down, the talent's going, the brain's still working. Shannon Hearn, he's like 100 years old. Surely someone is going to take kicking duties. They're not just going to wheel him out on a wheelchair. I think there is an interim period now, isn't there, where as great as Scott Pendlebury is, and the guy is a genius, and he's still got it, that is Nick Dacos's midfield. That is going to be his midfield. Like, you've had your 20-year Pendlebury. This is the era of Dacos now, isn't it? It's Nick Dacos for 20 years. So there has to be a period, but I think he's still got the ability to float through the midfield for 20 minutes at a time. But I just think the assurity of him at halfback, great ball user, you still want that leadership there. I think there's got to be a natural interim period, hasn't there?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head again. I don't know why I keep saying that today, but I am. But you're talking about passing the torch essentially over to Nick Dacos, much like Bucks back in the day, giving it over to Pendles. And I think that's just a natural thing. And yes, we saw Josh Dacos kind of style in the half-back role, but what you're saying is make a lot of sense. Where it's very evident now that we're missing a half-back rebounding 360-degree player. Josh Dacos did do that to a good extent on the weekend. We don't know how many good games we're going to have from Bartel to lock down that wing position. He's going to be inconsistent. So if that falls through next year, you can see when a team can go on the outside of us and spread the ball quick. Pendles does look a little bit too slow and pass. But if the game's in nice and tight and contested, he's so elegant. He dances around everyone. So if it's a quick midfield, there's going to have to be a time where he just floats onto the half back and Josh Dacos goes onto the wing, and we can probably get another couple of years out of him. Well, I'm hoping for him to reach the 20-year mark, and that'd be a thing of beauty. That's the way I see it, and much like you're seeing it. Are you in agreement as well, Champ?
Yeah, I like the idea of it. My only knock, and I know we don't like to speak too badly of Pendles, is he can't get his fucking tippy toes off the ground to try and intercept an aerial ball, but we'll leave that to the likes of Darcy Moore and maybe even Nathan Kreuger if he wants to play in the back line against Carlton, because we can't rely on Billy Frampton anymore, I don't think. And we've got Big Mackay and Kerno to worry about. So while we're here, let's just fucking talk about the game, because I'm raring to go, Pommy. What are we talking? What are we looking in? What are we licking our lips about when it comes to this game, these matchups, and so on and so forth? What are we thinking?
Well, I mean, this is one of them games that I don't think Carlton have had it for a long time with Collingwood, where you look at all the data and the data points to Carlton have to have a lobotomy to lose this game. But I have this rule since we've been good. I preview the games as if we're playing the opposition and I'm their fan channel, where I was a master when we were shit of making Carlton fans believe we can beat Richmond. Who cares they've won 3 flags and we've won 2 games? We can. So I always look at the Collingwood game the same thing. When you've got this rivalry, you know that no matter how many times we've played each other, this game becomes a contested slugfest. It's not free-flowing. Neither side is going to let each other go on the outside and play football. It's going to be rugged. It's going to be tough. You're going to have 20 minutes. We're going to have 20 minutes. It's going to be tough. And I think this game here, if I'm Fly, I'm looking at Carlton's stoppage game and going, this has been their one wood since I've been here. That famous game you talk about that you beat us, Carlton absolutely destroyed you around that area, but then you found that one quarter just to slow us down, and that's all you needed, your ability off turnover. So I think this game, if I'm Fly, I'm looking at it and going, got to stop Carlton in the stoppage. Got to make them ask the question. I think the last 5 weeks, if I'm honest, teams have asked Carlton the question and we've reacted to it. And I thought last week's third quarter kind of said everything you needed to know about Carlton at the minute. The second quarter, I think we won like 3 clearances and scored 8 points from stoppage, but we churned it on turnover.
Was it 2 goals from stoppage sources for you for the entirety of the game against Port?
Yeah, and it was that second quarter we had no stoppage or any clearance dominance, but we were slingshotting off the back of it. We were making them kick long, and I think we racked up about 30 points from turnover in the second, and that's our brand now. But for some reason, there is a little mental stigma of when you break through that stoppage, Carlton try and stem the bleeding. It's almost like they don't back. They can do it for 4 quarters, which I thought Collingwood did last year. Collingwood did so well that everyone kept saying stoppage is going to be an issue, though, eventually. But it never was it? Because you guys didn't care in the end, and you were just like, have the ball out of the centre, see what you do when we get it back. Carlton need to believe in themselves a bit, but if I was Fly, I would be saying, right, we've got to be really sharp around stoppage and clearance. Just make them question, can they rely on their slingshot off the back half of the ground? So I think this game's going to be really forward half based. Both sides like the forward half pressure. I think that's going to be a big telling area of who's going to be the first to break from the back half of the ground. And I think stoppage would be an area. If I was Collingwood, I would be targeting and saying, if we can just make them doubt early, that really helps us out because we know Carlton are going to react to it.
Very comprehensive. I love it. Champs, anything to add there?
Nah, I don't know, champ. I don't know. I'm more interested to see how we're going to stop the 2 Twin Towers and who's going to get that role for us and who we're going to come in. We're going to play a little bit taller. Is it Charlie Dean going to come in? Is Frampton going to come in? Is IQ going to get stitched up and play on Mackay or Kerner? I don't know. Or is it Braz? I don't know. I'm interested to see who's going to take those 2 Twin Towers out of the game. We saw Elia do a good job last week, and I think his body work was really good. So maybe that's the formula to beat him. Someone to get in. Darcy Moore had probably his best game in a long time last week, so hopefully he can continue this form over into Saturday night.
I like Pommy. I'm not sure how privy you are to this, but we've been entertaining the idea of Nathan Kreuger sort of finding his way in the back line, having been drafted by Geelong as a backman. Caleb's mentioned that quite a few times, that he has that prior experience. Do you think it would be just from, an outside looking in, because obviously we have our biases, do you think that's a crazy assumption or inclination to suggest that Kreuger should be potentially thrown to the Wolves and be asked to play on someone like Charlie Curnow in his first game as a backman? Is that too crazy to suggest in a game like this?
I don't think it is, no, because, I remember going against the Doggies, and I remember a good mate of mine is in the know at the Doggies, and he told me midweek, we're playing Rory Lobb and Buku Karmis on Mackay and Kerner. And part of me laughed because I'm like, well, one of them's a failed forward at like his 80th club. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's the Kim Kardashian of the AFL world. You know what I mean? Like, he's been everywhere. And I was like, then the other one is Buku Kamis, who was a forward, but now he's down the back. I was thinking, Jesus, if I'm Harry and Charlie, I'm like, what's the most ever kicked in a game? Like, I fancy it here. And then you watch them play, and this is a big thing I always tell people. Same with Brodie Kemp last week against Ratacalere. It's easy to shoot him in the head and say Ratacalere beat him, but also look at how easy it came inside 50. And I think that's a big one with key defenders. Not everyone is Jacob Wheatering, who loses 1 in 50 one-on-one contests. Most people are human. So it's probably 1 in 3 you lose because it's so hard. Like, it's quite easy. It's the same as soccer. If I cross the ball to my forwards, I've got the advantage because I'm crossing the ball. The forward knows which way it goes, what my natural whip is, what launch it comes in. The defender's guessing. So I think, Kreuger's got the size. He's got the experience, obviously, as a junior. He's a big boy, isn't he, Kreugs? Like, do you know what I mean? If you spilt his drink in the bar, you'd question telling him to fuck off when he asked you to buy another one. You know what I mean?
He's 6'5". He's very aggressive, and you can see that with how he attacks the ball, crashes packs, but also his ruck work. He knows he's not going to out tap people, so he gets in there, gets a big bump in, because that's how he's going to win a ruck contest. And my biggest gripe here is like Kerno's pretty quick. I think Mackay last time, Harry, killed Frampton a little bit on the first 3 steps, and Moore and Frampton aren't the quickest off the first 3 steps, right? We can see how explosive Kreuger is. I think that's a good matchup that we could potentially see more. And then maybe Bruzzy comes across, and then that allows Darcy Moore to really play a third man up, flying across intercept role. I'm flirting with that idea. And I reckon that could be a good formula going into the weekend.
Yeah, I mean, if I was Collingwood, I watched the Richmond game and I thought, I'm a big Darcy Moore fan. This might shock people because Carlton fans hate him. I'm a huge fan of Darcy Moore. I'm a big fan. I felt this year that you've used him all wrong. You've tried to treat him like Jacob Wheatering, and he ain't a one-on-one defender. Like, I look at Darcy Moore and I just think, if you're treating him as a one-on-one defender, everyone is about his level. But him playing higher up the ground as that loose player, that's his strength. Like, you saw his heat map against Richmond. It was almost like a traditional halfback flanker. It was like Tom Stewart for Geelong. Like, because Richmond are crap, for a want of a better word, forward of the ball, he could have less defensive responsibility and go to them hot zones where he is. And I would say that if I was setting up to play Carlton as Richmond and as Collingwood, I'd be saying slow their ball movement down. We don't want them to have precision in there. So make sure every player, particularly Sam Walsh, doesn't get a chance to steady himself. He's just going to boom it in there. And I'd be trying to get more freed up. So if that is Frampton and Kreuger as bodies on Mackay and Kerner, allow Darcy to float. Because that's where Aaliyah hurt us. That's where Buku Kamis hurt us. When you can allow them to float and peel off and make Kerno and Mackay follow you, that's where I think Carlton do come unstuck, particularly in the middle of the ground. When we're not kicking to their advantage, we're just bombing it in and hoping Harry does something amazing or Charlie does something amazing. And I think that plays into Darcy Moore's strength. I personally, humble opinion, think Collingwood would have hung Darcy Moore this year as your captain. Like, I think he should be playing loose and play to his strengths. He shouldn't be bogged down with defensive responsibility.
I'll agree with the fact that his primary role, and it's very clear now that he's not a lockdown defender. Like, that's clear. He got his ass handed to him by Nick Larkey and maybe a couple of other key forwards. Maybe even against Carlton, there was times where Darcy Moore tried playing one-on-one, didn't work out. The part where, yes, he is a great interceptor, and like you said with the analogy with when it comes to soccer, when the ball is constantly coming into your 18-yard box and you are not leading the dance and the opposition is because they've got the ball in their possession, it is hard to get a read on it when there's such high volumes of inside 50s coming in your way. So there is that with Darcy Moore's, I guess, downfall in form. But there have been times I feel like Pommy, sometimes you do as a player have to put your hand up and go, yeah, we're not playing well. We're conceding an exorbitant amount of volumes of inside 50s, but I'm looking at my game and I'm saying, mate, some of these aerial contests, I'm punching them. I should be taking them, or I'm dropping them. And like you said, he plays high up the ground. So when he doesn't mark that ball like a keeper, when they come out for a cross, it's all well and good to get your hands on it. But as soon as the ball hits your deck and you're out of your box, what happens next, Pommy?
Well, yeah, it's a goal, isn't it? But I mean, I think the people I know it's easy for me to say because I'm not a Collingwood fan, but I think I don't want to say Nathan Murphy is a big loss because I think I've mocked it before when Collingwood fans have gone, "Oh, we've got Murph," and I'm like, "Yeah, quality." But I do think you look at the great backlines. Like I always say, Melbourne had the template a couple of years ago. You had Harrison Petty when he was a defender, but that Petty, Lever, May worked really well because, let's be honest, if there wasn't football, Harrison Petty would be opening doors for the Adams family. He's just a big oaf, isn't he? Do you know what I mean? Big, stiff, board he is. But they just used to leave him in the goal square. And the problem is the guy's 210 centimetres, so a bit like the Nathan Kreuger use. Nathan Murphy was just a big, bulky boy, wasn't he? He's like one of them guys who opens the gates on farms in Southern American horror movies, isn't he? Do you know what I mean?
I'm writing all these down. Champ, you writing these down, man?
You know, the dim-witted son who becomes the hero in the end and he bashes his serial killer dad over the head and everyone's all right. In fact, the one bit of good exists in him. But you look at that, you've lost that at Collingwood. So then Darcy Moore, whose strength for me is playing a little bit free, getting that intercept, getting us going on transition. You're putting him there because he's the only one, let's be honest, you've got this year who can defend. Like, no disrespect to Charlie Dean, Mickey Mouse footballer, though, isn't he? All due respect to him. Do you know what I mean? Billy Frampton, come on. Mickey Mouse footballer. It has to be Darcy Moore. Like, if you're picking that team and you gave me $1 million a year to be the Collingwood coach and you said, Pom, we need someone to lock down the biggest defence forward. Billy Frampton and fucking Charlie Dean. Jesus, I'd rather send my wife out there and hope he distracts them. You know what I mean? Hope my wife distracts him a little bit. Like, because, so you've got to do it. But I'd say that's list management from you. And like, you make that great point. What about Kreuger? You haven't tried him. He is a defender. Like, you're telling me Kreuger couldn't stay in the goal square and say, right, okay, if this comes near, spoil it. All you've got to do, punch it to the line. Don't even worry about marking. Just don't get beaten. Stay on him like a glove. And then if we can allow Moore and we can allow Howe to play loose around you and you don't allow the deep entry, we're winning. But at the moment, he is the deep... Like, honestly, Darcy Moore at fullback, it's suicide, in my opinion, for Collingwood because you lose his ability to get you out. And that's what you were so good at last year. Teams could batter you and get it inside 50, but the problem is you'd go over the top of them. And I think that's the biggest mistake at Collingwood. I think it is literally you've taken all the skill you've got and you're bogging Quaynor down and Moore with defensive responsibility, where if I was their coach, I wouldn't want them defending. I'd be like, you can get beaten 8 times out of 10. I don't care because them 2 times you don't get beaten, that's 12 points.
Champ?
All I took from that is Nathan Murphy is like Lenny from Of Mice and Men.
Yeah! What? You see? John Steinbach. There you are. Educational chat.
Fucking hell. You remember that one, Year 8, champ?
No.
Of Mice and Men? Obviously, only I was paying attention in English class.
Do you remember when he kills the rabbit? I just wanted to get it.
Yeah.
Breaks the rabbit's neck.
Murphy, and I'm not reluctant to suggest that Kreuger could be the next Nathan Murphy, but a little bit taller and a little bit bigger. I don't mind that comparison. I love that. And mate, fuck up. Darcy Moore, today, he's our captain. I do feel sorry for the amount of vitriol he's probably received this year. And last week was a good way to bounce back and answer the critics. Hopefully we can get some more rebounding 50s from him and some more intercept marks, and hopefully keep the Twin Towers quiet on a Saturday night.
It's fascinating, though, because he's only lost 1% more battles one-on-one than he did last year. And Collingwood fans last year were telling me that he was better than Jacob Wheaton, and now they want him dropped. His captaincy stripped. Do you know what I mean? Like people are even taking the piss out of the poor guy for saying that he sleeps in a different bed to his missus. Like, try and get fucking married, man. I've wanted to sleep in a different bed to my wife. I'd get some fucking good sleep. Do you know what I mean? Like, fair play to him. Like,
I agree on that latter one. I think we can reserve a whole nother podcast for that sort of stuff. But regarding
all I hope is, Pommy, for your sake, is your room is well insulated and your wife isn't in the other room, because I've got an odd feeling the pillow might be out on the couch tonight.
Mrs. Pommy is a great woman. I'm very lucky to have her. Like Collingwood fans are lucky to have Darcy Moore as well. Do you know what I mean? Because behind every great team is a great stabiliser, which is what my wife is.
Yeah,
good.
Hey,
I'll put on the Olympics and do some Greco wrestling, I reckon.
Some Greco wrestling, yeah. Get the Olympics on.
Just before I forget, Pommy. So, and I'm playing devil's advocate because actually I love Darcy Moore. But I love the role change here, where you're vouching for Darcy, and I'm almost playing against him in this situation. You mentioned he's only losing 1% more of his one-on-ones relative to last year. What the stats may not tell you in that picture, and Champs, maybe if you agree or disagree, add to it. But I think because he's caught out of position in transition, he's probably not even close enough to engage in a one-on-one contest at times, which is why it doesn't necessarily affect that stat specifically.
Could be 100%.
Yeah, I'll add on to that. He ran at 100% disposal efficiency on the weekend. He runs the ball out. He kicks it to Cox or one of our key tools, and the ball gets hit down and Nick Dacos is there. I don't count that as a disposal efficiency because it didn't hit the target, but on the stat line, that's 100%. And a lot of the times he's severely out of position by 20 meters because he's gone to go impact the play. And it might be his man that he's left, and then they end up in a score result, or he's gone to make a play and then the ball's gone out the back and they score from that.
People are going to think Pommy's the Collingwood supporter by the end of this.
Yeah, but I mean... No. I mean, fair play. I mean, he hasn't been... I'll admit, I watch a lot of Collingwood because I watch a lot of footy, but I think his role last year, he had regular defenders. Like, I don't blame him. I remember Cripps copping a bit of hate when he first became captain. And Cripps went through this moment where I'll never blame him, but there was kind of like I wouldn't say selfish, that's probably too harsh of a word, but he knew the players around him were completely fucking useless. So sometimes Cripps had to say, you know what? You dickheads ain't going to get the hard ball and run it out. So you know what? I'm going to do it because I'm the captain. And hopefully one day one of you will bust your ass, right? And there was a lot of feedback from Carlton fans. He's selfish. He needs to handball it. And then you watch that year back and you're like, some of the donkeys he was playing with were running backwards as Cripps was running forwards. What did you want him to do? He's the leader and he's still new in his leadership role, Cripps was. And now you see Cripps berate the midfield and grab them by the scruff and say, I'm in the trenches, you better get dirty. Look at Darcy Moore this year. Some of the defenders around him, like, it's like watching Helen Keller. Do you know what I mean? Like, honestly, sometimes he's got to do it. And I don't begrudge Darcy because I think when people talk about leadership, this is where I'll defend him. I thought the way he handled the Jack Ginnivan conversation was probably the best bit of AFL media from any captain in the history of the game. The fact that he took some ownership for himself. Jack Ginnivan comes out and says, I was pissed, I was young, I was stupid, which I thought was the best apology in the AFL because finally there's not a player saying, oh, my pet rabbit died 2 weeks ago, He actually said, you know what, I'm the dickhead. I'm the dickhead. And then I thought when Darcy came out and said this is something that we need to look at as a leadership group and a playing group to open our doors and make sure we're asking the question, that's a man. That's a captain who's saying, you know what, he's fucked up, but I'm the leader. Maybe I should have asked the question earlier. Maybe I should have been on the phone. Maybe I've let myself down and let him down. So I think Darcy Moore's looking at some of them entries and going, the fuck is IQ doing? He thinks he's a midfielder now. I'm going to have to go and get that ball. And he's taking the risk of coming off his man to try and get it and back himself in. I'm seeing a man that's desperate for his leadership group above him to help him. Like, I blame McRae here because I know McRae wins a flag and I'm on a Collingwood show. McRae talks in the biggest riddles ever, doesn't he? Like, he loses a game. He's like fucking Jose Mourinho. Like, he's saying everything about the game. Like, you guys lose by 40, and then McRae comes out and goes, well, I don't think we lost this week. It's a little bit like when your mum bakes some bread, and you can either come inside and help her knead a dough, or you can stay outside and ignore her and hope she doesn't burn the toast. And you're like, the fuck is he on about? Is he all right? Like, is everything all right at home, Craig? And I look at Craig and think, if I was him, I'd be like, Darcy Moore needs help. He needs help. And I feel like he's the scapegoat at the moment. But, I mean, Jesus, if Darcy Moore requested a trade tomorrow, 17 clubs are putting in big offers for Darcy Moore. That's how good he is.
Couldn't argue more with that. Like, any club would take more. So, and we still love him. We still love him, right? But it's like Harry Mackay, like fucking 2 years or was it last year? It was absolutely shocking at set. Yeah, it was last year. He couldn't kick a fucking goal to, couldn't. Well, no. See, this is when we mess up the analogy, champ. I was going to say he couldn't hit water if he fell out of a boat, but I fucked it up. But that was him last year, right? Like, he couldn't kick a goal. This year turns it around, and we hold Morph to a high standard, and that's why we're a little bit harsh on him.
He is, but I mean, Harry Mackay last year, it was bizarre. Carlton fans were hating him, but you look at his score involvements, his work around the ground. One thing I'll commend Harry for last year is, he was kicking like Christopher Reeve at times. Do you know what I mean? But the great thing about him is he was finding other ways to impact. Do you know what I mean? He was working up the ground, which then dragged a defender out with him. So then Charlie was on a one-on-one. And I knew it would come back. Class is permanent. Form is temporary, but class, same with Darcy. This time next year, he'll be killing it. And honestly, if Craig McRae wants to get rid of Darcy, I'll willingly play him centre-half back with Wheater in. Carlton will never lose a game. Ever.
I'd have to add to that, Pommy, just a few things. I had to jot it down again because early onset dementia is a thing between Caleb and I. We've probably got half a brain put together when it comes to the memory retention things. But so Darcy Moore, the injuries, no doubt, that has obviously plagued the Collingwood and has, I guess, exacerbated Darcy Moore's situation. And then you talk about the trust. There were a myriad of clips that we would pull up, and we're asking. Where we see Darcy trying to impact a play that he probably shouldn't, but I was making the case that he's going over to try to impact that play because he doesn't trust these lesser defenders on his team, and that's a reality, and that's probably something that doesn't meet the eye for the general AFL viewer, but someone like yourself who's clued in, you can tell it doesn't. It's like, again, Champs, I love having Pommy here because I can use soccer analogies and he understands. It's like when your keeper comes out for a cross and he calls keeper, but the defender still jumps up to try and head it because he doesn't trust that his keeper's actually going to catch that ball.
I was a striker growing up until I was 20 and stopped playing. I played with a good mate of mine, Nath, my best mate. But honestly, this is the only guy in the world who's 6'8", and when he jumps, he's 4'2". I have never seen someone so tall be so shocking at heading the ball. And the amount of times I used to hear in a corner, he'd scream Nath, and I'd be like, F this, I'm getting in the way of it because, Jesus, the ball's just going to hit his head and go anywhere. At least I can head it. Spot on to what you're saying. And Darcy's the same type of player. He wants to win. And when you see Isaac Quaynor trying to do a Rabana 30 metres from his own goal with the ball, and I mean, I love IQ. Do you know what I mean? I love IQ. I mean, Jesus, God looked after him. What a specimen IQ is. Do you know what I mean? Like, I look at him, and I've never been so envious of a guy without a shirt. I love watching Collingwood's training sessions because, Jesus, that's a rig and a half, isn't it? Look at him. Jesus. Sweet Jesus. But let's be honest, at times he isn't a mature, capable defender. I remember watching him at juniors playing in the pouring rain, and I was huge on him in the draft going, I have never seen a kid so clean. The ball was like oil, and he could just run and pick this ball up, fend off and burst through. Look at him in the AFL, though. It's almost like he's doing too much with it. He needs to go back to basics. You've been moving Jeremy Howe up top, back forward. Crisp used to play at halfback. Now he's a full-time midfielder who messes about in the forward. That back line needs stability. And last year, you made 3 changes to it? If that, throughout the year? Like, it's like Dad's army at the moment for Darcy. Do you blame him? Like, if I was Darcy Moore, would I trust Quaynor to die for a ground ball get? Probably not. Probably not. So I'd probably have to come and get it. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I'm dubious. As a Carlton fan, I'm looking at this and saying, Harry and Charlie, my message to them if I was the Carlton coach, sow the seeds of doubt in Darcy early. Sow the seeds of doubt. If I'm Charlie, I'm wanting him isolated and I'm dragging him out to deep water. You know, like Khabib used to say, that his art form when he's fighting is he takes you out into deep waters and you ask big questions of yourself. Like, that's what I'd be doing with Charlie. I'd be dragging Darcy 55 out from goal and saying, do you want to play this game with me? Because I'm better than you on the air, on the ground. I'm quicker. I'm prettier. I'm smarter. Do you want to play this game with me? And
he's got an aura as well, Charlie. He does. He's got an aura as well around him, a force field around him, Charlie, I feel.
He's the only person I've ever met, and I've gone full 13-year-old high school girl as well. I remember a good mate of mine sponsors Charlie and introduced me to him, and honestly, I couldn't think of words to say other than hi. And I think I said hi like this. Hi!
Hi! It's like when you go to talk and the fucking word doesn't go out.
Yeah, it was like my first date with my wife. Like, everything went better in my head. Like, I had all these articulate words. Big fan, Charlie. You've come back from 8 career-threatening injuries, and all he got was hi.
No good.
Yeah, I'm a fan of Mr. Curnow. I'm a big fan of him and his forward craft. I was speaking to Terry today down by the G, and he asked me live. He tried to put me on a spot. He goes, so what do you think about this free kick merchant in Curnow? Like, what do you think about that? And I go, mate, like, I don't know. I've heard that. I don't subscribe to it. I actually think Curnow, for his size, he's only 6'3", 6'4". He's not really a key size tall forward like a Mackay, like a bunch of other, I guess, elite forwards. McStay's probably a little bit taller as well. He just uses his body and positions himself in positions so, I guess, demanding of his defenders that they end up having to, I guess, commit a free kick or a foul because Curnow's got prime position.
I know we're in Australia, but amazingly, I'm not an Australian, so I can say this. I know Australia is a wonderful country where we implore you all to have an opinion. But in my country, you're allowed to say you're an idiot. And it's healthy because it's how we get better as people. We don't accept opinions. If your opinion is Charlie Curnow gets his goals from free kicks, you are a first-class moron. And it's time you uppercut yourself in the face and snap into the real world with Uncle Pommy, because it's nice here when you're in reality. But spot on what you say. In every other sport, someone who is fouled is genuinely incredibly gifted at what they do. And the only way you can stop them sometimes is being close to the breach of rules. Charlie moves like something you haven't seen. And you look at the guys who are the most fouled free kicks per game, Max King. Max King's 200 centimetres and moves like an otter through water. He's hard to stop. And what are most of his free kicks? Defenders grabbing his shirt because he's so quick. Charlie's one of them. Tom Lynch, he's a bear moth, isn't he? Let's be honest. When he's fit, Tom. Harry Mackay, how many times does Harry get chopped? Because he's 9'8". Yeah, I mean, like it's a bit of a nightmare when he's in the front. Then you've got Rory Lobb. Not too sure how he's fouled. It's probably his haircut.
Maybe Mason Cox, not Rory Lobb. Maybe Mason Cox.
Then you've got Jesse Hogan, players like these guys are incredibly good, and it's the hardest thing in the world when you go up against someone who's better than you. You've got to do everything in the book to stop you. And I think Charlie actually is under-umpired because my issue with Charlie, and I say this on the watch-along, Carlton fans hate me, find Australians too honest. I need more Jack Rewalt from Charlie Curnow. I want him putting his hands up, screaming, crying, because that's what Tom Hawkins does, and that's why he gets the freeze, because he lets the umpire know this guy's taking the piss. I feel like Charlie sometimes gets fouled and just ignores it and kind of carries on. I want to see a bit of a flop from him.
More LeBron James, more James Harden, more Steph Curry, more Doncic, more that type of stuff, right?
Yeah. I know people say it's cheating and stuff, and I always find it funny because Australians go, "Oh, but it's not soccer, Pommy. We don't like cheating." And I've got two words for you, Johnny Bairstow, right? So when Australia's saying they don't cheat, they built a heritage on cheating. Do you know what I mean? I lived through the 90s and 90s. The Australian Ashes team, half of it was just swearing and being horrible. Do you know what I mean? So I want to bring back simulation in football. Someone start diving, please.
I do agree with you in a lot of instances there. The one thing is, and Charlie's a type of bloke, you can see it. I reckon he's got that bull in him where it's like, even if you're going to hold me, I'm going to still break through. I'm just going to take the mark. You can see that by the way he jostles in position. Like sometimes he doesn't even lead. He could lead and burn his defender, but sometimes he's just like, hey, put it on my head. We'll jostle. I'll still outmark you. And I say that because I reckon that's his mentality is like, you know, do whatever you want. I'm just going to try to beat you regardless. And maybe it isn't front of mind. I know some footballers, like, they just don't think of diving in the moment because you're just so backing your physical ability to beat them regardless of what they're doing.
Champs, all the languages that you could have spoken today, and you chose to speak facts, brother.
All right, on that point, I'll head out.
No, I agree. I mean, Charlie is a great guy. As a human being, he's a great guy. I think he's very laid back. I think Harry is as well. I think both of them probably have that testosterone arrogance where they want to beat you man on man. They don't want the free. They back themselves. Oh, okay, cool. You're going to do this. Look how much of a dickhead you'll look when I kick 8 on you. But yeah, I mean, I think it's like, for me, why I like Pendlebury, why I like Nick Dacos, like, take your hatred out of it. We are privileged to live in a world where Charlie Curnow and Harry are playing at the same football club at the same time. It's like pairing Messi and Ronaldo together. Do you know what I mean? Like, and before you know it, I always say this as an old man. I remember being there for Cristiano Ronaldo's debut for United. I remember my pop saying, he's the best player I've seen since Georgie Best. And my pop used to go on about Georgie Best all the time. But he used to say, enjoy it, because one day Ronaldo will say, I've had enough. And he was like, and then it'll be some other melt. But he was like, enjoy it. Like, we're in a key forward dream, aren't we, at the moment? Max King's world class. Jesse Hogan's back to his best. Ben King's having a good year. Harry, Charlie, like, we've been crying out for key forwards. And we've got 10, and it's the same with the one that breaks my heart, Sam Walsh and Nick Dacos. Why can't you say both of them are world class? Because tell you what, if I had $100 in my pocket, the tickets were $95, and I got a chance to see Nick Dacos go against Walsh, I'm paying it, because that's a once in a lifetime. Both of these players are world class. Like 30, 40 years time, people are going to be like, Dad, Granddad, tell us about Nick Dacos versus Walsh. And you're privileged to see them. Like, it doesn't have to be better or who's better. Or if you say Nick Dacos is good, it means Walsh is rubbish. Both of them are fantastic. And I'd do anything to get Nick Dacos at Carlton. And I'm sure you guys would do anything to get Sam Walsh at Collingwood.
100%. 100%. Well said. Well said. Pommy, we could talk a very, very long time and drink lots of beers in doing so as well, which maybe we might have to tee that up.
I have to tee it up.
Off-season content, 8-hour stream.
Yeah, I love that. Let's do that.
We'll do a pub golf. Do a pub golf, I reckon. We'll live stream the whole event.
Pommy,
and then we can finish the night with Greco wrestling.
Let's go.
Lock it in, Eddie.
Pommy, I was going to say on that note, do you have anything left to say to the viewers? But I think we have to leave it at Greco wrestling.
Yeah, just put your bets in the chat.
Brilliant.
Who's winning?
So, signing out, Pommy. We'll see you next time, and hopefully that next time won't be too far away, and I don't think it will be.
Can't wait. Cheers, boys.
Cheers, Pommy.